Somewhere in rural Colorado, there is an independent repair bay with a cat yellow excavator parked over a steel grate, hydraulic lines fanned out across the concrete, and a mechanic kneeling beside the engine cover with a laptop balanced on a milk crate. That machine should have been dead. The dealer told the owner it could not be touched without a factory-authorized service call, a flatbed tow, and a bill that started in the thousands. For years, that was simply how it worked. The big yellow giant in Illinois owned the parts, owned the diagnostic software, and owned the digital keys that decided whether your own machine would start in the morning. But that grate, that laptop, and that running engine are proof of something the equipment giants spent millions of dollars trying to prevent. The lockout broke. Ordinary people broke it, and this is the story of how they did it. For most of the last 2 decades, owning a heavy machine stopped, meaning you actually controlled it. A modern Caterpillar excavator runs on electronic control modules, the small computers that manage the engine, the hydraulics, the emission system, and the diagnostics. When a fault appears, the machine throws a code. To read that code, clear it, or change a protected setting, you need a program called Caterpillar Electronic Technician. The software the company simply calls CAT-ET, and the deepest functions inside CAT-ET are locked behind factory passwords, the long-digit strings that only authorized dealers were ever supposed to hold. Replace an engine control module, adjust certain parameters, reset an emissions inducement, and the machine demands a password you do not have. So your loader sits idle in the yard while a competitor finishes the job you bid on. This was never an accident. It was a business model. Caterpillar built one of the most profitable parts and service empires in the world, and the digital lock was the wall around it. The reporting on this is blunt. Companies like Deere and Caterpillar use their control to freeze out independent repair shops and build up their own parts and service businesses. If you are forced to drive to the authorized dealer for every real repair, the dealer sets the price, the dealer sets the timeline, and the dealer captures the margin. Trade journals like Equipment World and Construction Equipment documented the same pattern across the whole industry. The machine you paid hundreds of thousands of dollars for was only half yours. The other half stayed in Peoria. This is the part that wounds anyone who came up in this trade. There was a time when a good mechanic could fix anything that rolled into the shop. You knew the engine, you knew the hydraulics, you carried the manuals, and you earned a living keeping iron alive. Then the accountants who took over the equipment giants figured out that the most reliable profit was not selling the machine. It was controlling the repair of the machine forever. So they locked the software, they restricted the parts, and they turned skilled independent mechanics into people who were legally allowed to look but not allowed to touch. That is the insult underneath all of this. They did not just take the work. They told you that your skill no longer counted. The money behind that insult is staggering, and it explains why the giants fought so hard. A dealer technician arrives on a flatbed, plugs in the only authorized laptop, types a factory password no independent shop can legally obtain, and clears a code that took the software 30 seconds to read. Then comes the invoice. The travel charge, the labor rate, the marked up genuine parts, and the diagnostic fee stack into a number that would have bought a used pickup. Multiply that across a fleet of excavators and wheel loaders, and you understand why the parts and service side of the business out-earns the machines themselves. The lock was never about the wrench. It was about the bill that followed the wrench. And it was never only farmers feeling this. The mining and quarry world lives on the same yellow iron and the same digital handcuffs. A loader feeding a crusher or a haul truck, climbing a pit wall, cannot sit dead for 3 days, waiting on an authorized dealer to drive in from the nearest city. Downtime in a pit is measured in lost tons per hour, and every hour a locked machine sits idle is money pouring straight off the edge of the bench. So the operators who run the hardest jobs in the country had the strongest reason to want the lockout gone. They were the ones quietly cheering when the farmers started winning. If you want to watch the people fighting back against the equipment giants, subscribe to Quisoup. If you are watching on your TV, find Quisoup and hit subscribe there. So how do you beat a company that has lobbyists, lawyers, and a factory full of passwords? You do not beat it in a single shop on a single afternoon. You beat it the slow way, with a movement, and the first real crack came from a part of America the equipment giants thought they had fully boxed in: farmers. The same digital lockout that strangled construction mechanics had been strangling people on tractors for years, and farmers do not quit easily. They started talking, organizing, and demanding their machines back, and the federal government was finally listening. In May of 2021, the Federal Trade Commission, the agency Americans call the FTC released a report to Congress with a name that said everything. They called it Nixing the Fix. The report studied the exact tricks the manufacturers used, the limits on spare parts, the adhesives that made components impossible to swap, and most important, the unavailability of diagnostic software. And the FTC found something the manufacturers had always claimed was untrue. There was scant evidence that locking out independent repair protected anybody. The safety excuse was hollow. The cybersecurity excuse was hollow. The lockout existed to protect profit, and a federal agency said so, in writing. 2 months later, in July of 2021, the FTC voted unanimously to adopt a formal policy statement promising to put real enforcement muscle behind repair rights. The wall had its first inspector standing at the base of it. Then the movement moved out of Washington and onto the actual dirt. The American Farm Bureau Federation, the largest farm group in the country, had been negotiating with John Deere for years over this exact fight. And on January 8th of 2023, at the Farm Bureau Convention, the two sides signed a memorandum of understanding. Under that agreement, Deere committed to giving farmers and the independent shops they choose access to the tools, the software, the manuals, and the diagnostic information needed to repair their own equipment. A farmer could finally hand his machine to the local independent mechanic instead of hauling it to the only authorized dealer for 100 miles. It was not a perfect deal. Deere kept the right to charge for access and refused to unlock anything touching emissions or engine power. But for the first time, a giant had signed its name to the principle that the owner has a right to fix the thing he owns. A handshake can be walked back, though, and the farmers knew it. So in Colorado, they did the thing the manufacturers feared most. They turned the principle into law. In April of 2023, Governor Jared Polis signed House Bill 23-1011, the Consumer Right to Repair Agricultural Equipment Act. Colorado became the first state in the entire country to legally guarantee that farmers can fix their own equipment or take it to an independent shop. Starting January 1st of 2024, manufacturers selling agricultural equipment in Colorado are required by law to provide owners and independent repair providers with the parts, the embedded software, the firmware, the tools, and the documentation needed to do the repair. Caterpillar and Deere had lobbied hard against bills exactly like this. In New York alone, Caterpillar spent tens of thousands of dollars fighting repair legislation, and in Colorado, they lost anyway. A state with more cattle than senators wrote the first crack in the wall directly into the law books. Now picture what that does for the shop in Colorado from the start of this story. The mechanic, kneeling beside that yellow excavator, is no longer a trespasser on his own customer's machine. The law is behind him. The federal regulator is behind him. The largest farm group in the country is behind him, and the aftermarket grew up fast to meet the moment. Independent diagnostic software, third-party parts makers, and rebuild shops that specialize in keeping older iron alive turned a legal opening into a working business. The machine that the dealer pronounced untouchable now idles smoothly in an independent bay, billed at a fraction of the authorized rate, finished in a fraction of the authorized time. That is the lockout, broken in practice and not just on paper. Quick break before we get into what happened next. If you have been on this channel for a while, watching how operators take back control of their own machines, there is a way to make sure you do not miss what is coming. Join the operator tier for $4.99 a month. You get badges that mark you as a working professional in the comments section, custom emoji to call out the corporate decisions that killed Cat, and you get every video 24 hours before the rest of the internet. To join, open your phone and search Quisoup membership, or go to the channel page and tap join. Join the operators and engineers who are paying attention. Now back to it. Here's what happened next, and it is the part the equipment giants are most afraid of. Colorado was not the end. It was the template. The moment one state proved the sky did not fall, the same farm groups and repair advocates carried the language to legislatures across the country, and the construction trade press started openly reporting that the right to repair movement in heavy equipment was intensifying rather than fading. Every new bill cites the Colorado law. Every new negotiation cites the Deere memorandum. Every new state hearing cites the FTC report by name. The thing the manufacturers feared was never one stubborn mechanic. It was the precedent. And once a precedent exists, lawyers in every other state copy it. Watch how Caterpillar itself responded, because that is the real tell. The same company that lobbied against repair laws quietly rolled out something called CAT self-service options, a program that hands owners the parts, the instructions, and the recommended tooling to perform specific repairs on their own machines, already covering more than 300 construction models, with more on the way. A giant does not voluntarily give away the repair it spent 20 years locking up. It does that only when the wall is already cracking, and it would rather hand you a key than watch you take the door off the hinges. That is what a win looks like in this industry. Not a press release with the company smiling. A grudging change in behavior from people who never wanted to change at all. So before we close, here is the question worth fighting about in the comments. The farmers won their right to repair through a memorandum and a state law written specifically for agricultural equipment. Construction and mining machines were left out of that Colorado Act. So should heavy equipment operators wait for Caterpillar to keep expanding its self-service program on its own terms, or should they demand a hard construction equipment repair law with the same teeth the farmers fought for? Tell me in the comments. Because here is the uncomfortable truth the whole story points to. The dealer never owned your skill. They only owned the password. And once a federal report, a farm group, and a single state proved the password could be pried loose, the entire model that the accountants built on top of it started to look a lot less permanent. The mechanic in that Colorado Bay did not get lucky. He got organized, he got backed by law, and he got his trade back. The padlock that used to sit on the engine cover is on the floor now, cracked open, and the yellow machine above it is running. One more thing before you go. If you really want to be part of the inner circle on this channel, join the site foreman for $9.99 a month. You get a public shout-out in upcoming videos. Your name, your operation, your story, validated in front of the entire QuiSoup audience. Plus everything from the operator tier. To join, open your phone and search QuiSoup membership, or go to the channel page and tap join. And remember, the giant only ever owned the lock, never the wrench in your hand, and the operators who get organized are the ones who take the machine back. See you in the next one.